What's the most disgusting thing you witnessed in public? Had a guy fly past me, in a neon yellow motorcycle. Like a speed bike. I saw him, and then I heard him. Must have been going 150 plus. Short while later, cops flew past. Eventually hit a yellow bike broken in half, on fire. Looked like someone dumped a truck bed load of ground beef and egg white on the road. Still have dreams about it. Edit, holy shit, I posted this while I was waiting for someone on hold for work, and came back to see it exploded. Sorry to expose so many to this, lol, thanks for making my work day go by so much faster. Today was shit, but chatting with you all made it better. I am a long-time rider. I used to see a guy always going past me in the morning. Always in a tag, all the time, all the protective gear, and he will wave once in a while. One of the days, there was a long traffic jam due to an accident, and I am filtering through the traffic and reached the scene. Cops were covering the body and putting a tarp. I could see it was him. Literally threw up a little in my mouth, thinking that it could have been me. I couldn't ride for some time. Never tried to look up who was he, or what caused the accident. Saw a woman at a bus stop try to hack up some phlegm, but it caught in her throat, so she reached in and pulled it out with her thumb and forefinger, retching as she did. It was like some cave glowworm. She then shook the sticky giblet from her hand onto the pavement. Grim AF. My mom used to work for a casino. Walking through it, one time I saw a lady at a slot machine, who hadn't showered in God knows how long, had a huge brown stain on her dress, and the chair she was sitting on had something dripping off of it. Gambling addiction is more than a problem. My dad was a security guard at a casino for 15 years. The chairs at the slot machines were cloth when he started, but they had to change to vinyl because people would piss and shit themselves. He once witnessed a guy mortgage his house and then gamble the money away. He dropped dead on the casino floor. He said there were times he would leave work and come back the next night, and the same person would be there gambling, wearing the same clothes. People would also leave kids in the parking garage, or sneak them into the hotel in suitcases, so they could gamble. I'm a 911 operator, and we get calls all the time about people leaving their kids in hotel rooms, or cars in Niagara Falls, to go gamble. We have even had a few infant deaths, and the parents were located in the casino. Sad and infuriating. This carnival, I saw a girl standing, pissing herself, and kissing a guy, at the same time. Piss going down her legs and everything, on a Sunday afternoon party. I used to go to the public library to use their computers. I learned that there's plenty of weird guys willing to jerk off under the desks. I learned this too. Went to the library to do homework, and wondered why the guy 2 seats over got up and left after having just sat down. 5 minutes later, I realized it was cause the guy on the seat in between us was playing with his D. I was like 10 or 11 at the time, and I was so horrified. I think I just left and went home. I was parked up in Summertown, Oxford, and watched an old guy stop in the street and shake a massive turd out of his trouser leg before confidently striding off. This is the second leg shake and turd story on here. Does this guy teach a class or something? It's a normal thing in casinos. During the WSOP, a few stories or videos on the poker subreddit pop up that are basically this. It was 1 to 3 years ago, and there was a video of someone getting told they need to change their pants or stop playing. From casino staff. He stood up, picked up the turd in his pants, walked to the trash can, threw it in anger, walked back over and did the happy now shrug/look. My buddy was driving me home from jail, and while on the interstate, a silver sedan zoomed right through the median at 70 miles per hour or faster, and hit the back tire of the truck in front of us. The truck wasn't a semi, but it had like 8 massive tires on it. Needless to say, I was shocked when that tiny plastic sedan managed to knock that truck over. We got out, being that we were one vehicle behind the crash, to go see if she was okay. Somehow she was decapitated. When I walked into the train on 125th at rush hour, like 6 months ago, a woman was at the bottom of the entrance steps, bent over, with her pants and underwear down, and her bare ass facing the steps, just having straight liquid diarrhea all over the floor, which we all had to basically walk over to get onto the platform. I felt bad because she was homeless, and clearly was probably not in the right state of mind. What made it even worse was, I ran into my boss, who I wasn't very close with at all, while walking to the train, and we ended up walking together, and basically had to continue our awkward small talk, while sidestepping over this scene. Someone decided to dump his explosive diarrhea from a bridge into the water, and I witnessed everything. A lot stayed on the bridge. Hold up. Was this the incident in Chicago that was like Dave Matthews' tour bus, or something? No, with the DMB bus incident, it wasn't just like one person crapping. The bus driver decided to release all of the bus sewage over the bridge, right on Michigan Avenue. More disturbing than disgusting, but when I was 13, my family was going to Chicago on a train. On the way back, a lady was at the far side of the platform. I still don't know what she said, but my mom's jaw dropped. My dad screamed, "Stop," causing me to turn at and see the lady step right in front of the train. My mom grabbed my eyes. Too late. Plus, it didn't stop the blood splatter. We ended up going back to my uncle's for a few more days, and he drove us home that weekend. A junkie who I just gave Narcan to. He grabbed a dirty needle and tried to stab a waitress who just wanted to help him. "You killed my buzz," he said. Covered in his own shit, vomit, and foaming from the mouth. Blood coming from his nose. Lucky she didn't get stuck with his needle. I have 3 for you. They are fairly evenly tied. Edit, I'm adding a trigger warning here, as I realized, mine are less disgusting and more disturbing. So, take caution reading ahead. I witnessed a motorcycle accident, where a guy was going maybe 5 to 10 miles per hour, riding with shorts and flip-flops, and when he turned his bike tipped, and was too heavy for him to keep up. It fell onto his leg and slid a few feet, taking his lower leg with it. I will never forget seeing the tendons, muscle and broken bones, or hearing his screams, as he felt his leg get torn off. The second, driving on a freeway at night, we saw a car flipped over and the driver had not been wearing a seatbelt. He got thrown hundreds of feet away, and his girlfriend was holding his skull, and his brain was spilled on the road. He was still alive and trying to talk. We stayed with him until the ambulance arrived. And last, I was at a stoplight on my way to work. A lady at the bus stop, on this busy road, got on all fours, pulled her pants down, with her rear end facing the street, gave birth. The baby plopped out, and just fell onto the sidewalk, along with urine and feces, as is common in childbirth. Not her fault really, but if you've ever witnessed childbirth, you can imagine how horrifying it was to turn and see that, at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday, with no warning. And of course, I've had the usual piss and shit stories, but nothing really phases me anymore, after these. Was on the bus, and there was a couple. The gentleman took a seat, and the lady was standing. About 10 minutes later, he started loudly sniffing her crotch, like a dog, grabbing her ass, etc. Making the loud licking noises. Pretty ew. It seems like public transportation is always filled with some weird nasty person, making it uncomfortable for everyone else. I saw a woman pick her child's snotty nose once, with her bare hands, and then proceed to eat the boogers and snotty, like it was crumbs and noodles. I'm getting sick, just thinking about it again. I'm a teacher. Had one student, a girl to boot, who sneezed into her hands very loudly during class, cue and everyone staring at her, including me, because I was shocked someone could even sneeze like that. It was more like a scream, and while everyone was looking at her in silence, hands covered in loads of snot, and God knows what stuff that trickled to the ground in long strains, she proceeded to sort of snort it all up again from her disgusting hands, licking her palms and fingers clean, even. All in a matter of seconds, that seemed to last an eternity. I was that close to throwing up on the spot. In fact, I might want to do that now. A man with his hand in the air, very dramatically, slitting his wrists with a razor. Now I understand, this is most probably a cry for help, but it was 2 p.m. on a sunny day, in summer, on a busy street, with kids everywhere. My ex runs a restoration/hazard cleanup company. He got a call for a quote, from family of a man, who slit his wrists, and as he bled out, he walked through the house, spraying his blood all over everything in the house, until he collapsed in the hall and died. His wife was leaving him, and apparently, he didn't want her to be able to take anything, so, he ruined everything in the house. People are effing crazy. I was eating a nice meal with my fiancée. Look out the window, to see a homeless man, just going for a piss on his friend, who was sleeping. Like, a dark yellow, blood color, only for his friend to get up and chase him with a large-looking knife thing. Sad thing is, about 3 days later, he was found dead on the floor, outside the same restaurant. Went to the cinema to watch Looper. There was a strange noise behind me, like a rustling. Turn around, and some girl is giving a vicious hand job to boyfriend, in tracky bottoms. Full thick cock out. Unashamedly carried on. It was Looper, for F's sake. Well. I was sitting in my car, in the dark, smoking a cigarette. Then a raggedy-ass homeless dude was 2 meters away from me. He pulled his pants down quickly, dropping a giant turd, pulled his pants up, and went on his way, as if nothing happened. He didn't wipe either. This only took, like 5 seconds. Took a Greyhound, to Lexington, Kentucky, back about 20 years ago. A man sat next to me, only carrying a Walmart bag. Inside this bag, he had 3 cans of tuna, and a jar of mayonnaise. Dumped all contents inside, then proceeded to eat it directly out of the bag, using only his mouth. I had to sit next to him for 4 more hours after this, and the farts were more diabolical than anything my dog has ever done. I also was working as a server in a restaurant, on the night we had our seafood buffet, and a man's colostomy bag fell off right onto the floor, near the crab legs. The smell was worse than anything else I have ever smelled since, and I've worked in composting. Happened to me, as a teen. I was riding my horse, with a group of people on the riverbank, that bordered the barn I rode at. We were looking for a low spot, to take the horses into the water at, so, we were bareback, with no shoes or phones. Saw something weird on the bank, got off to investigate, and as I got closer, something warm, and wet, and rancid, squelched between my bare toes. It registered in my brain, that I was staring at the decomposing torso of a human, the same time I started dry heaving and vomiting. I was standing, barefoot, in all of the fluids and fat, that had started melting off of the torso, under the summer sun. I will never forget that smell. Coming home late from the pub, at the train station, we grabbed a burger from the van there. Walked up onto the platform, and there was a policeman, dragging a tarp along the platform, while another was on the tracks, picking up the bigger parts. There was a trail of blood, and smaller parts, down the middle of the tracks. Pretty grim. Being young and drunk, at the time, I don't think I realized the gravity of what had happened. It has stuck with me, though. Someone got ran over by a car. Apart from 3 good civilians, who were close by, I saw about 20 people take their phones out to film it, and 1 person live streaming, through assuming Instagram, or something. What the F is wrong with people these days, that the first thing in their minds isn't going over to help, but to take out their phone, and start filming things like this, just for likes and upvotes. Ugh. Every day, the human race never ceases to disappoint me, a little more. It's just sad. When I took my first aid course, for my driver's license, the instructor even gave us a tip, for dealing with crowds. Give them tasks, like, fetching a blanket, or getting some water, and they're gonna be gone very quick. Everyone wants to stare, but no one wants to help. 2 teenage girls, sitting on a ledge, with 2 guys, 1 for each, in between their legs, with their pants down. It was the middle of the night, and I was walking home from the club. These teens were just getting it on the side of the road couple, side by side, outside at night. They stopped awkwardly, until I passed, and then continued, I guess. Other multiple instances, were guys peeing outside. I mean. Firefighter EMT, I got called to a bleed victim, who had a description of bleeding from the penis. We got there, and when we were told by his father, that his son was in the car, needing help, we found him only wearing a t-shirt, and was covered in blood. We assisted him out of the vehicle and onto the stretcher, where we saw rags falling from his scrotum. We asked him what happened, and he said, that he surgically removed his testicle. We found it in the bathroom next to the drain, along with a straight razor, a sewing kit, and a soldering iron, on the counter. As a man, I still think about that, pretty often. I knew a kid, that realized, he was attracted to young boys, as he got older. He never wanted to hurt a kid, so, he tried to cut his ball off, but passed out from the pain. His next idea was, breaking and entering, 15 years in prison, and every time he gets close to parole, he just does something terrible in prison, and gets more time. He feels protected and safe there, and my heart breaks for him, but I admire his determination, to not hurt kids. Saw someone hit by a bike, and his leg broke clean from the hip, but the skin stayed attached for long enough for the leg to swing right back round and over his head. It was the noise of the impact that haunted any silences I had for about a month. Saw a poor woman cyclist's guts spread across the ground, post being run over by a truck. I didn't see the actual accident, just the aftermath, from my office building. It was really difficult to look at. Saw a man take a shit on a shop counter in Houston, Texas. He was refused game tickets by a racist shopkeeper. A grown-ass man beating his kid in front of a store. There's a special corner in hell reserved for that guy. In our early 20s, now 31F, hanging out on my porch with husband and some friends. A car is coming down the road, residential neighborhood, and it's like speeding, then slamming the brakes over and over. So we're watching, obviously. Once it's close enough to my house, we see a woman driving, and a boy, like 9 or 10 years old, in the passenger seat, and every time she slams on the brakes, she's punching and smacking the kid all over. We all, 5 of us, jump to our feet. My husband yells, "Ay," and runs toward the car. She takes off. Husband runs in to grab our keys, and takes off after her, while my friend is calling 911 with vehicle details. Husband tracked the car down a couple streets over, and we told the cops. Cops were over there for a while, then the car was gone, and we never saw it again, or got an update on the kid. My city has public water fountains, called Benson bubblers, that constantly spurt a little bit of water, pointing straight up. The spurt is about 1 to 1.5 inches tall. Fresh, clean drinking water, for anyone walking in the city. At least, they used to be clean. Anyway, a homeless woman was using one as a bidet. I've seen this once, in person, and there are multiple videos online. 15 years ago, beautiful summer afternoon. Waiting at the bus stop at SW Madison at 4th, right at the entrance to City Hall. The sidewalks are bustling with tourists and commuters. A crittler shambles along, looks down, fishes a used prophylactic from the gutter. He promptly fastens it over the shiny nozzle of the adjacent Benson bubbler, carefully inflating it like a balloon. I haven't drank from a fountain since that day. Plenty more crittler stories, but this is likely the glurgiest. I was sitting with my baby at one of the eateries at the SF Zoo. At the table right next to us, we're 2 women and about 3 kids. One of the women takes a potty chair with a bag out from under one of the strollers and sets it on the ground between our tables. She then takes one of the little girls, who was maybe 2, pulls down her pants, so she was exposed to the entire restaurant, and sits her down on the potty, where the little girl then does her business. There was a bathroom 15 feet away. She wipes her, puts the shit napkins and bag of shit on the tray, pulls her pants up, and they leave. Left the shitty napkins and mess for the teens working there to clean up. When I was leaving, I noticed a puddle of piss under the area where the potty was. So, the bag had a leak. I notified the cashier immediately, who just stared at me like I was crazy. Unbelievable. This also reminded me of the time I was having a smoke outside of my bar in North Beach, and this little old lady lifts up the lid of the recycling bin. I didn't think much of it, as it happens all the time. I looked back, and she had a 1-year-old, spraying diarrhea all over our recycling and the bin which we store inside. We responded to a collision where a guy got hit by a car going around 100. Split the car like a sardine can, after which he was hit by another. He was a mess on the ground, poor guy. We had to cover pieces of him with blankets. Wrapping his severed foot was one of the strangest experiences I've had. It felt heavier than you'd expect. Overall, it was sad. I remember talking to a female on the side of the road where it happened. She had the stereotypical 1,000-yard stare. I asked her if she was okay, and all she muttered was, "That was my husband." Just terrible. On my way back from uni, I once saw a guy walking weirdly. Nothing special, just a guy. That was before he bent over a pole and puked, then walked to another pole and puked again. 4 times in a row, always standing back up, like it was an everyday occurrence. This happened to me once, due to food poisoning. You feel fine, then it effing hits you like a truck, and there is nothing you can do. Your body just makes you puke it out, with no alternative. I probably did the grossest thing I have seen. I was driving on a business trip at night, from Philly to Harrisburg, when the cheesesteak I ate at the Phillies game decided it needed out. I was in no man's land, and just speed up, trying to make it to the next town and a hotel, or something, that would be open late at night. I didn't make it. Had to pull over. Sat on the guardrail, and let fly. Used my undershirt to wipe, and left everything there. No one drove by, thankfully. Sitting in a beer tent, during a concert. About 20 feet away, a guy sitting at a table, pissed right there, while still sitting down. Nobody said a word. I told my friend, and he just shrugged, like, oh, well. Not 5 minutes later, the same dude who pissed, turned his head, and puked. He took off his shirt, wiped his mouth, then threw his shirt on his pile of puke. Nobody at his table even flinched. I left grossed out, and told security as I was leaving. Don't know what happened after that. I used to work at a liquor store, so I've seen all sorts of crazy, scary, and disgusting people, the absolute scum of society. But this one woman takes the cake, for the worst of them. She was a homeless woman, who would show up every other day or so, to buy the cheapest booze we had. She would never talk, mostly just point and grunt, at what she wanted. She didn't cause problems or steal, at least, but good effing God, she scared me just from her appearance. She was extremely obese, always had her scabbed over gut hanging out, black makeup, streaked down her face, as if she had been sobbing all day. Her hair was torn out in large chunks, and there were inch-wide sores, where the hair had been, and she had some nasty-looking scars on her face. She was always filthy, as if she had been rolling around in mud, and used engine oil, and smelled like it, too. She would also constantly hork up, this orange and green shit, sometimes for 30 minutes straight. She would be outside coughing it up. I had to ask her to leave, a couple of times, because no one would come near the door, with her by it. My manager, who said he had seen her since she first became homeless, said she was both HIV and hepatitis B positive. She could have been cast in a zombie movie, as she was the scariest and most disheveled human being I've ever seen. And I've seen a lot of people, in a bad way. I felt sorry for her though. No one should have to live like that. I honestly doubt she is still alive now, considering this was years ago.